Well, here we are, everyone. We finally reached the conclusion of this long retrospective, one which I had no intention of making this long, but one that I felt compelled to simply because RahXephon itself is a very compelling series. I have no idea why, and I don't think it's objectively a good series, but it is very compelling to me, and it's very fascinating simply because of how weird it is. I've seen some great things on this channel, and of course great things will elicit a response from you because they get you to empathize with the characters or just to buy into the series as a whole. I've also seen some really ass things in my day, nothing that I've talked about on this channel, but things that are so bad that you can't help but pore over them and dissect them to really understand what happened. I'm talking about The Room, I'm talking about your Neil Breen productions, stuff like that where it's objectively a train wreck, but you still gotta watch it because of how much of a train wreck it is, and for that reason it does have merit and it's still interesting and fascinating. RahXephon is weird though because it's neither of these. It's not what I would consider a great series. Its writing and a lot of its characters are objectively pretty poorly executed in my eyes a lot of the time. But it still has an overarching vision and it still has high production value. So it's not complete ass. It's not horrible and it's not so bad it's good. Quick explanation on that. That's not to say it's bad either, because while I didn't find the plot that captivating, and to be honest a lot of the characters are pretty one-dimensional or boring, the series does have a lot of production value put into it. The OST is a masterpiece and the visuals are usually pretty good, and there are a lot of iconic designs and some great voice acting. So what we're left with is a series that is equal parts ambitious, artistic, well-produced, and well-executed, and that is undeniably rushed, not thought through, undercooked, and kind of boring or confusing or frustrating at points. And this near-perfect balance in my eyes causes RahXephon to elicit a bunch of weird emotions in me that I haven't really felt before or after watching this series. It's not so bad that it's good, but it's not so bad that it's bad. But it's not so good that it's good, and it's definitely not great. And so you would think it's extremely average or middling because, you know, it's not good or bad, but it's so weird in a lot of the directions that it goes that it's not simply a boring middling piece either. If I had to say, I would say that it's a really unique art piece. And in this way, I think RahXephon is worth a watch, and it does have at least artistic merit. Whether or not you enjoy the series, I still think it's fascinating. I've seen it 7 times, and I feel when I finish watching it, I'm like, okay, that was like a 7, a low 7 maybe. And even though I don't particularly find it super captivating in terms of plot or characters, I do find the series itself bizarrely captivating. Maybe because the production aspects fascinate me, or maybe because of the artistic intention present. RahXephon is fascinating because of all the questions it makes you ask, and questions that I didn't think I would ask myself while reviewing a series for this channel before. I don't mean philosophical questions, or character quest questions, or questions pertaining to any of the themes of the series. I'm talking about deep, cut and dry production questions. What were they thinking when they wrote this scene? Why was this scene written this way? Is this scene necessary? Why is this character interacting with this character in this way? Why did we just cut from this scene to this scene? And so on and so forth. It's just so weird that I don't know if I like it or not, and that's something that I've never had before. I've never watched the series and not been able to determine whether or not I like it within a couple viewings. And for that reason alone, I think it's fascinating, as it serves as kind of a Rorschach test to determine just kind of where you stand on some stuff. Do you like open endings? Are you willing to overlook stuff? How easily do you buy in the characters? So on and so forth. It is a fascinating piece, even if it's not objectively good in my eyes. So if this is your favorite production, I do have questions, but I think that is a valid opinion because, you know, art is subjective, and at the end of the day, whether or not you like something is up to you. So if you love RahXephon, I think I understand it, even if I myself could probably never love this series. I do think it's fascinating, and I do think it's worth a watch, although I objectively can't tell if I think it's good or not. Because I can't tell if it's objectively good or not, because a lot of it is good and a lot of it is bad. However, I do think credit should be given for just simply the artistic effort put into it. Like, they could have written a very middling average series, but they didn't. And while RahXephon does serve as a brilliant example of the need to streamline and cut stuff out of productions during the editing process and during the writing and production processes, I do appreciate how bold it was in trying to go in every direction at once. Yes, it does stretch itself way too thin, and its reach does exceed its grasp a vast majority of the time, but it does so consistently that I can respect the boldness. I can respect the artistic effort that went into trying to exceed expectations in every way possible at all times possible. And while that does result in something of a train wreck, it is a very unique one that I'm glad to have experienced. Because even if RahXephon is sort of a testament to style over substance, it is very stylish, and the style in which it was done is a very unique one. Also, quick note on the supplemental materials that flesh out a lot of RahXephon's plot. I feel like including that in this retrospective would be counterproductive because the series itself doesn't include them. If we want to judge the series on what it is, then we're going to have to kind of watch it in a vacuum. I understand that the supplemental material adds more lore and context, however, those serve as a band-aid to the original series, and it's still a noticeable issue if the original series required that band-aid in the first place. That is one of the reasons I wanted to review this series in a vacuum, because it is important whether a series or a movie can stand on its own regardless of supplemental material, and being able to do so is a mark of a great series. RahXephon can't, so, well, I'll let you draw your own conclusions from that. Now, again, the series is very flawed, and there are some things that I think I legitimately hate about it. I want to say mostly the editing. I hate the way the series is edited, because by splicing up a lot of big scenes together, they create a bunch of little scenes that interrupt each other and therefore make it difficult to buy into any of them. A great example is when Kunigi sacrifices himself by destroying the Terra base. That's intercut with Ayato having a very emotional discussion with Mishima. And had both of those scenes just been separate, solid 5-minute chunks played back to back, then yeah, the episode would have been really impactful because we would have had two very strong scenes that we buy into because of how relevant they are to the lore and just how emotional they are. But by cutting them up and mixing those two together, we get one 10-minute sequence of tonal whiplash as we keep going between two very important scenes with different tones, and it makes it obvious that they're detracting from each other because you buy into one for the minute that it's on and then it switches to another one and you're like, wait, what? Go back to the other one. And then it does just as you're getting invested in the current part of the other scene you're watching. If anything is the Achilles heel of RahXephon, I would have to say that it is the editing, as it's probably the only thing of the series that I actively grew to dislike. I love the OST and a lot of the visuals are great, and even though a lot of the writing does confuse me, I can appreciate some of the artistic thought that went into it. The editing, though, is just detracts from everything, good or bad. And so I gotta say, I think I hate the way this series is edited. But I don't hate the series at all. Again, I don't know if I like it, but the fact that I can't tell whether or not I like it is a unique enough feeling in my heart to warrant this series' existence and to warrant me watching it. I am very happy to have watched this series, as I feel like it's pushed me creatively as both a watcher of anime and as someone who talks about it. I feel like it's really opened my eyes up to things that work and things that don't work, and why it's important to push the envelope, but you gotta make sure that you can fit everything in the envelope at the same time. And, well, RahXephon definitely tries, and it doesn't always succeed, but I think it is admirable for that reason, and it is captivating and fascinating to me, even if I do hate the editing, and even if I do think that objectively, it's not great. If you love RahXephon, all the power to you. I think that's fine. If you hate this series, yeah, I can see it. I myself don't hate it, but I don't think I love it. I think it's fascinating, and I'm glad to have watched it, although I still honestly can't tell how I feel, which, ironically enough, does invalidate part of this retrospective, although I'm okay with that, because it's about the journey, it's not about the destination, at least in my eyes. So for all the people that did recommend the series, thank you. I legitimately have had a fun time making the series and watching the series, even if I didn't necessarily buy into the story or characters of RahXephon itself. I did garner enjoyment and interest from the series, but mostly for production reasons. So You could say that it failed because I didn't really buy into the story, but you could also say it succeeded because, well, it's entertainment, and I was entertained and interested by it. So, while RahXephon is probably the most mixed bag of all mixed bags, it is still worth your time, at least for a watch, because while there are a lot of legitimate criticisms of RahXephon, I don't think the criticism of it's simply an EVA clone is valid. It's not an EVA clone, even if it does draw inspiration from it in some very obvious ways. No, it's a very unique unicorn, it's a very unique series, and I would recommend watching it because of how weird and unique it is, both in terms of writing and what's going on in story, and what's going on outside of story in the production room. There are just so many weird facets of RahXephon that I can't help but watch it, even if I don't think I love it, even if I don't know how to think about it or how to feel about it. And for that reason, even though I'm not sure who won this match, I'm glad to have wrestled with RahXephon. Well, everyone, thanks for tuning into this retrospective series. It's been a long one. I didn't think I would go this in-depth in the RahXephon, but it captivated me so much. What I thought would be my shortest retrospective ended up being my longest. I might make a supercut of it. We'll see how that goes. If I do, please tolerate some reused music and footage. It'll be a budget production, if you know what I'm saying. But thanks for tuning in, and thanks for watching me ramble with this series. Now, we're going to get into a lot of one-offs. I have quite a backlog I'd like to tackle before we get into another in-depth retrospective. And of course, to determine that one, there will be another poll. In the meantime, stay safe, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.